Hello, my name is Brant Hunt, and today is the 18th day of April 2024. I'm going to be reading a short part of a particular book here called The Reflexive Universe by author M. Young. Author M. Young is a brilliant man. In fact, he was the one who invented the Bell helicopter back in the 1940s, or maybe it's the late 30s, I should say. But he was also a philosopher, very keen. He understood how things worked, and eventually his works were used to reflect how life takes place on this planet. And I have another book by him, also, The Geometry of Meaning, also. There's another book he's written, but I do not have it. But what I want to do is to read this particular, it's not going to be that long, no more than 5 or 10 minutes here, from chapter 2. And so thank you for being here. So this is a quote from his Reflexive Universe, Evolution of Consciousness, which was written in 1976. The book is still available if you desire to look into this. So it's called, this chapter 2 is called Life as Purposeful. And then the chapter, with this chapter starting, it's called The Enigma of Light. The heart of our story, that is, light, the beginning of creation, lies in the nature of light. Here we are confronted with mystery, and I say this not because of the perplexities of physics, but in view of what is the essential nature of light. Light, because it is primary, must be unqualified, impossible to describe, because it is antecedent to the contrasts necessary to description. While the foregoing is essentially a philosophical statement, the physicist would have much the same report. For the physicist, light is unique in that, unlike everything else that exists, in actuality, it has no mass. And he has it in abbreviations, not abbreviation, in columns here. It says no rest mass, meaning R-E-S-T. It has no charge, and as evident by the finding of relativity that clocks stop at the sound, at the speed of light. It has no time. So it is timeless if we understand when I mentioned Phil Langdon, which Phil Langdon recommended these books to me a couple years ago. Speaking of simply is timeless. Light is timeless, you see. While light in its vacuum has a velocity of 186,000 miles per second. This velocity is not motion in the ordinary sense, since it can have no other value. Objects can be at rest or move at a variety of speeds. Light, on the other hand, has but one speed, and then it's in brackets, in any given medium, and cannot be at rest. Even space is a meaningless concept for light, since the passage of light through space is accomplished without any loss of energy whatever. Light, L-I-G-H-T, involves us. It is a special kind of difficulty, the difficulty of knowing about that which provides our knowledge of other things. We might imagine a painter who wanted to paint the paintbrush. A problem I encountered when I wanted to repair my glasses. I cannot see without them, and light by which we see cannot be seen. This sort of Zen paradox is not appreciated by the scientist, who likes to think of light as, quote, just another kind of particle, end quote. This interpretation does not stand up under examination, or to call that which is outside of space and time and which has no rest mass, quote, just another kind of particle, end quote, is a placebo for materialists rather than a correct description. See page 6. So the materialists basically want to push it to the side. They don't want to deal with it. That's what he's basically saying here. Light is not an objective thing. Whenever I take this back, they come in, these scientists come in with a preconception themselves. So he understands that right at this meaningful point, because it's been for the last probably nearly 100 years. What's happened simply is the science is no longer science in its regard to being unbiased. He's become biased, or they can't understand anything, so they push it to the side and ignore it. You see, light is not an objective thing that can be investigated as can an ordinary object. Even a tiny snow crystal, before it melts, can be photographed or seen by more than one person. But a proton, the ultimate unit of light, can be seen only once. Its detection is its annihilation. Light is not seen, it is seeing. Even when a proton is partically annihilated, as in scattering of protons by electrons, what remains is not part of the old photon, but a new photon of lower frequency going in a different direction. An ordinary object can be thought of as a carrier of momentum or energy, which it can impart to another object. A hammer striking a nail exerts a force which drives the nail. A bowling ball conveys energy which knocks over the pins. In both cases, the hammer and the bowling ball remain after the work is done. With light, however, its transport of energy from one point to another leaves no residue. Light is pure action, unattached to any object, like the smile without the cat. This light energy is everywhere, filling the room, filling all spaces, connecting everything with everything else. It includes much more than the light you see by, for all exchange of energy between atoms and molecules, and is some form of what used to be called electromagnetic energy, which extends over a vast spectrum and would be better named interaction. Visible light covers just one octave in that spectrum. Continue on. He goes down to, he's going to be reading from pages 16 and 17. The principle of least action. The difficult question is, what is action? This will become increasingly important as we proceed. Curiously, the notion of light as action was one to emerge quite early. It was observed in the 17th century that sunset occurred a little later than it would if light followed a straight line. Light, as it enters the atmosphere, follows a curved path. This phenomenon is explained as due to the fact that the speed of light is reduced by the atmosphere. What is remarkable is that the path followed by the light through the layers of atmosphere is precisely that which gets it to its destination in the shortest possible time. In driving from a point to the city to a point in the country, we can reduce the total time if we shorten the time spent in the city, even at the expense of going a longer distance. Fermat, the famous F-E-R-M-A-T, the famous 17th century mathematician, was the first to solve this problem of the path for the minimum time. Yet light, going from a denser to a rarer medium, follows just this path. As Planck, P-L-A-N-C-K, himself said of the phenomenon, quote, thus, the protons, which constitute a ray of light, behave like intelligent human beings. Out of all possible curves, they always select the one which will take them most quickly to their goal. This law that light always follows the path taking the shortest time is known as the principle of least action, according to Planck again. It made its discoverer, Lesprit, and soon after him, also his follower, Maupertus, spelled Maupertius, Tuis, so boundlessly enthusiast for these scientists believed themselves to have found in a tangible evidence for a ubiquitous higher reason ruling all nature. And from the quote here, he's quoting from Max Planck, Scientific Autobiography and Other Papers, page 178. Consideration of light as purposes, as the reader is probably aware, the notion of purpose or teleology is forbidden in science, among biologists especially, who, while they must be strongly tempted to invoke it at every turn, avoid it as a reformed alcoholic avoids a drink. Physicists avoid it because their problems don't require it. Yet we find one of the greatest physicists saying that, quote, the historical development of theoretical research in physics had led in a remarkable way to a formation of the principle of physical causality, which possesses a explicitly teleological character. But I do not wish to make an issue of the question of teleological here. Let us simply note one thing, that there is only one exception to the exclusion of purpose from science, and the exception is light, which these several sciences have seen fit to regard as having a purposeless behavior. Let us also note that the purposelessness is associated with that aspect of light known as the principle of action or least action. Importance of Planck's discovery that action comes in wholes, W-H-O-L-E-S. What did Planck add to this principle of action that was not already present in the ideas of Leipzig? It was the notion that action comes in quantitative or wholes, and that this unit is constant. Note that despite tendency to refer to energy as quantized, a habit which even good physicists are given to, it is not energy, I should say, but action that comes in wholes. So what he's saying simply, it is not coming from energy. It's something else, completely different, and we are not able to, at this point, understand it. And he explains something else here. He says action here, in a way, saying that, and in a way he's saying it is not energy, but action that comes in wholes. But he's saying action equals energy times time equals constant. Action is constant. Energy is proportionally to frequency. T is the time of one cycle. So far, except for the reference to purpose, I have kept within the bounds of accepted science. Now I would like to go further to track down the notion of purpose which Planck, and before him, Leipzig, felt was indicated by the principle of least action. As we have noted, purpose is barred from science. As Bacon said, quote, purpose like a virgin consecrated to God is, in brackets, for science, barren, end quote. But as Whitehead pointed out in his Functions of Reason, quote, scientists animated by the purpose of proving they are purposeless constitute an interesting subject for study, end quote. As Whitehead went on to say, we must distinguish, quote, between the authority of science in the determination of its own methodology and the authority of science in the determination of the ultimate categories of explanation, end quote. Whitehead obviously wanted to include purpose as the ultimate category of explanation. How may we include purpose in cosmology? Then it's in brackets, the ultimate category of explanation, in bracket, while still excluding it from the methodology of science. We know that science builds its entire emphasis on three measures based upon mass, length, and time, and their combination. and all scientific formulation can be expressed in these terms. Clearly, there is no evidence of purpose in any of these. It is not in mass, nor in length, nor in time. The only superposition of it, as we noted, occurs in the formula for action. Action has the measure formula of ml 2/t, which means this combines mass, length, and time. It is possible that there is something present in the whole that is not in the parts. This is clearly the case here. Consider any device made of parts, say a bottle and its cork, or a flashlight and its bulb. It is possible to find the function of the device in the parts. Surely? No. Only when the device is put together can it express the function and its purpose. So when it becomes whole, and then you put the flashlight with the bulb, and also the batteries in it, and you push it, and it works. It functions. But it all has to work together, you see, is what he's saying. It was Planck, epoch-making discovery that action comes in wholes, a discovery which, in its retrospect, we see to be true of human actions. We cannot have 1 1/2 or 1.42 actions. We cannot decide to get up, vote, jump out of the window, call a friend, speak, or do anything 1 1/2 times. Wholeness is inherited in the nature of action or decision or purposefully activity. Planck discovered about light touched home. It is true of our own actions, but we didn't really know this until the physicists had made this a principle. And a lot of he's saying here simply comes from the note from Alfred North Whitehead, The Functions of Reason, from Princeton University in 1929. Continue. Light as first cause. Perhaps I should let it be at that. We are already pressing the mind beyond its limits here. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and see what happens. Since purpose is in the whole and not in the parts, the whole must be greater than the parts. How can we account for this? Because the whole cannot function when divided. It follows that function is that aspect of, quote, cause, end quote, which is not in the parts, and which science cannot deal with, because science deals with mass, length, and time, which are parts. This leads to a basic cosmological postulate. That is, the parts are derived from the whole and not the whole from the parts. In other words, the whole exists before the parts. You see this in his page 149 and 150 here. Continue. We can now close our argument for in showing that the parts arise from the whole. We provide confirmation for light as first cause. Light equals quantum of actions equal wholes equals first cause. An additional consideration that confirms the fundamental nature of action is that actions are unqualified. While mass is measured in grams, lengths and meters, and time in seconds, quantum of actions are counted with no necessity of specifying the kind of unit. This implies their fundamental nature. Action precedes measure. They are prior to the analysis which yields grams, meters, and seconds. It might be objective that actions have the measured formula of ml 2/t and hence cannot be dimensionless. The answer is that though action has the dimension of ml/2t, that is, we are taking the position that this particular combination of dimensions known as actions, or known as action, I should say, is the whole from which time, mass, and length are derived. The reasons are as follows, as he states here. 1. Actions come in irreducible quantums or units. 2. These units are of constant, in other words, i.e. invariant, and size. 3. They are counted, not measured. 4, because indeterminate, they constitute the endpoint in the chain of causality, or causation, I should say, and therefore first cause. And that is the conclusion of what he's sharing here. And I wanted to share something else here, if I can. See if I can get this thing to show what I want to show in this book. So he's going to give what I call an example here, not example, but diagrams here in this particular book. And these are the diagrams. And the one here is called the electromagnetic spectrum. And I don't know if you can see this or not, because it's going to be kind of hard. And then he goes into the diagram of a magnetic field. He talks about this here. And then he goes into what he calls the wavelengths. And then he talks about the radiation has a upper limit beyond which it fades out. And so this shows what I call the frequency at the bottom and how it goes up and then eventually dissipates. And then he talks about what we called earlier in when I was reading this, talking about why does the sun takes the quickest path and the earth. And so this is what he's showing here at the very top as he shows how the light goes across what I call a curved path. And he also talks about the quickest way to get from the city to the country, meaning simply is that it takes more time to go through the city than it does to go in the country if you use the quickest path. Not where necessarily a road is, that perspective. So that's just what I want to share with you guys. It also, like you said, light has first cause, which is in here. It does that, which we already talked about. There's one more illustration here, which is down here, which is talking about linear momentum and angular momentum. Here's at the bottom here. You can see it here. So anyway, I just wanted to read this very short chapter of his. It's basically science itself is spellbound in some ways. What I mean by it wants to look at the particular parts and come up with the whole. Now, I'm going to jump the subject real quick in a way that he doesn't talk about, but light itself is energy. Yes, it is energy. And it is constant for a certain period of time that we have it when the Earth rotates. And then it goes back to night. And then you have the moon as a lesser light. But what he's saying simply is that we don't understand it completely because it's out of our range of actually understanding. It's so vast in a way. And we know the scripture says, let there be light. It just happened. It's based upon scriptures. If you look at that particular meaning just simply is it happened. So there had to be someone greater, doing something of this nature that we've yet to figure out where's did the energy come? Well, you say, well, it's coming from the sun. Yeah, it's coming from the sun, but it's also not only interesting if you don't have The key is people don't understand. If you do not have light, L-I-G-H-T, you do not have life on this planet, folks. Period. You don't. That's what photosynthesis is about. That's what all it helps trees to grow, help vegetables to grow, all that type of thing. If it's dark all the time, there won't be any light on the planet, which we have these ignorant fools out here who are quote-unquote trying to block the sun, or quote-unquote dealing with a carbon foolishness, which is fuckery. It's just stupid. But anyway, we won't get into that subject. But the point simply is that what I'm trying to share with you is that the ideas that people do not understand this whole thing simply is that they don't what they're saying simply is the physicists, as he's saying, do not want to practice their own apparatus. In other words, their own tools of actually understanding this. They dismissed it because, in fact, it's too vast for them. In fact, what they don't want to say is simply they don't understand it. They don't understand it. And they should be rightfully say, in a way, that they should say and be honest to themselves that they don't understand it. It's a mystery, far above what they have as knowledge, you see. And we know simply in scientists, which I'm not a scientist, but and as a poli-sci major, a political science major, we have to use parts in order to come to the whole. It's the same thing, even though it is not what we call a hard science, it is a soft science. But the same thing as in the hard science with science, it has to fit in a way that adds up. The parts equal a whole. And as simply as this, if there is no light on the planet, L-I-G-H-T, there will not be any life on this planet, L-I-F-E. And this is important because we seem to have lost our ability to think in some ways and appreciate what the Creator did, spoke it in existence. It may be literal. That's all we know at that point. It's what we're told. And I'm not going to go into the whole Bible thing. I'm just basically want people to understand that it is unexplainable and its vastness is far above all our heads. We don't understand it. So you must, in some ways, appreciate what the Creator has done, you see. And the other thing simply is that the Creator is timeless, which most people, we can't fathom that. We don't understand that because it's above our heads again, because it doesn't fit in our quote-unquote way of thinking. It's beyond our way of thinking, you see. And so you have to accept it and appreciate it, you see. So I appreciate you being here. Again, author M. Young is the author of this book. I think he was a teacher at University of California, I think. Or he may be a standalone. But anyway, it's well worth a look into his books. This is one of them here, The Reflexive Universe. And the other one I have is The Geometry of Meaning. There are also videos of him before he passed away in the 1970s and 80s. This done, you can watch some of those videos as he's asked questions from someone else to explain these type of things. And so it's kind of a way of educating yourself to understand that we don't have all the answers, but there is a way of showing that something is that this is vast. And we've yet to figure it out, even though we've been here thousands and thousands, not millions and millions of years, have yet to discover how this works, you see. So, yeah, thank you, Vankowski. Thank you for being here. So, again, just want to share that with you guys, and I wish you a good day. And again, he does something else. I want to say, let me quickly think. He says, and he has a little, what I call, in the reflexive universe here, he points out how life has worked, the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, all this started. And part of it's all to do, in a simple analogy, is simply the oak tree. You know, the oak tree is very simple. It means it has a seed. And that seed, it drops off the oak. So it's the same question about what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Does the acorn come first or the tree comes first, the oak tree? We don't have an answer for that in reality. We can speculate. You see, it had to be, well, we say there's what had to be a seed, but how do you know that? If you would think that would be correct. But then simply as, well, where did that seed come from? Well, that seed came from a tree. It came from an oak tree. So wait a minute, how did that work out? You see, so there is no answer to that. Somewhat in the chicken and egg. Which one came first? Same way with the oak tree and the acorn. It's perplexity. We don't know. But yet you should be thankful that the acorns fall from the tree in order to, and many of them fall and never germinate, but many do germinate in order to continue to have life on this planet. You see, without the acorns, there is no more oak trees, so to speak. You see. So again, the analogy of the seed, which even Jesus spoke of the seed, he also spoke of that in his language also. But this is not a religious deal or a spiritual deal, although it is somewhat spiritual and reflected of what Arthur M. Young is speaking of, because basically Arthur M. Young is almost coming to the point, he may not even say it, but he does say it, that there had to be a creator. You see, there had to be a creator. There had to be someone who started this, you see. So, all right. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a good day. You take care.